So why is nutrition important? And nutrition is my personal passion in neonatology because I really truly think, regardless of what happened, however premature you're born, if you get good nutrition, like that will trump everything else. You'll get good brain development, those connections will go strong, you get good head and neck control, and then that'll help with reflux, that'll help with breathing, that'll help with everything. So I think nutrition is kind of the good foundation for all babies. And then we know from kind of the literature that babies that are born small, who don't catch up, or who are born small and stay small, actually have higher risks of having long-term neurodevelopmental delays than babies who might have been born small but who caught up, or babies who were appropriate and then got small because they fell off of the nutrition. This is why nutrition is so important. So the American Academy of Pediatrics says that we should do nutrition to support postnatal growth the same as if the baby was still in the womb or in the placenta. But we just don't have the tools to do it that well. So the body is made in a way that it can give way more calories, way more electrolytes, way more everything than we can give once the baby's been separated from the mom. So that sounds great, but how do we do it? So all babies, after they're born, are going to lose weight. So when they're born, whether they're less than 500 grams, less than 1,000 grams, they're going to, by the time that they're corrected at 36 weeks, have already been losing weight. And that can sometimes persist out to 18 months if we don't really focus on the nutrition and make sure they're getting adequate nutrition. So this might look familiar. If you guys ever looked at your growth charts of your babies when they were in the NICU, a premature growth chart, which is specifically designed for premature babies, depending on what their gestational age was, looks like a J-shaped curve, as opposed to full-term kids, it looks like a straight line. So you start at the 50th percentile, and then you'll drop down, and then you'll start growing, and you're hoping that this line will start to go back towards the 50th percentile. And so that's why we focus so much on nutrition in the NICU, because we don't want you to start here at the 50th percentile and then go home being less than the 10th percentile. We want to get you to where you were when you were born and hopefully better. Skip this one. So why do we pick the nutrition that we pick? So we're telling you guys, okay, you're going to go home and you're going to take this formula and you're going to do breast milk, and what's the why of that? So who should get fortified at discharge? What should we fortify with? And how long should we fortify it with? So we're going to answer those three questions. So who should be getting fortified at the time that they're going home? Any preterm baby who was born less than 1,500 grams, who is still small for their gestation, meaning they're less than the 10th percentile by the time that they go home, should get fortification for going home. Any baby that's less than 2 kilos or less than 40 weeks corrected, which is less than 40 weeks corrected is probably everybody in this room, they should be getting fortified. And then any evidence of any kind of a nutritional deficiency or an osteopenia, I don't think any of your guys' kids had those issues. And then any baby whose daily growth is suboptimal. So remember I mentioned earlier, we want them to gain an ounce a day on average. So what do we fortify with? So there's going to be some babies that are going to be primarily breastfed. There's some babies that are going to be all formula fed. And what we feed depends on how much we have of breast milk and how much we're going to use of formula. So if the baby is taking formula, then all babies who are less than 1,500 grams, who are still less than the 10th percentile at the time that they go home, should get a increased calorie formula. And I think in this room, everybody's getting a degree of breast milk, right? Okay, so let's skip on to the ones who get breast milk. So if babies are getting a percentage of breast milk, we still need to do fortification. And why do we need to do that? If you don't fortify breast milk in a preterm baby, what happens over time is that their growth rates don't achieve the growth rate of 1 ounce per day, based on what's actually in the breast milk. Not only that, we see that the protein indices, things that are an indication of good nutrition and good growth, your protein markers, they start to decline over time, and so the baby continues to lose weight, which is why protein is the most important nutritional building block. It's the same thing like people who, what do they call them? Muscle bodybuilders. I'm like, post-call brain slip. Bodybuilders drink protein shakes by the pound because as they're gaining weight, they want it to be in muscle, not fat. So protein, there's not enough protein in mom's breast milk. And then in addition, because most of the calcium, phosphorus, and zinc is accrued during the pregnancy and the last 4 weeks of the pregnancy, after 36 weeks, all babies are starting low on calcium and phosphorus, which means healthy bones. So we want to make sure they're getting extra of that. Can you see the next one? So the recommendations from the different kind of governing boards of the neonatology who do all this research recommend that babies who are born less than 1,500 grams, who are exclusively breastfeeding, get at least 2 to 3 bottles of a transitional premature formula that's 22 calories or more. And if babies who are on just breast milk cannot maintain their adequate growth and start to fall off of the growth chart, then they should be put on this transitional formula as well. Because there's some places where mom's like, I don't want any formula, I just want to breastfeed. You go home trying it, and if your baby starts falling off, then you have to supplement in order to maintain good nutrition. So that's the recommendation. And why do we say do the formula and not just add the formula powder to mom's breast milk? Because that's another thing that some places do. When you add the formula powder to the breast milk, you increase the concentrations of the nutrients so that it makes it so that they're not in an optimal rate, but they might be too much, because you still have calcium and phos and zinc and things like that in the breast milk. It's just that you don't have it in the quantities that you need, but when you add the powder in, it might be too much. So, and the other thing too is that in the breast milk, when you add the formula powder, it makes it too concentrated, and it also can affect the kidney's ability to process it. This is something that people do, but it's not the optimal. The optimal is to do unfortified breast milk and to do formula. At this point, this is what we use in the hospital, the Similac HMF Fortifier. This can be purchased from Abbott, from their website, only as a powder, which we use the liquid, like the liquid can't be used. And there are some places that recommend ordering this and using this rather than, and you can put this in the breast milk. It's specifically designed to be put in the breast milk as opposed to formula powder into the breast milk. But you need to monitor the electrolytes and things like that, so it's not too much. You know, that's what we do in the NICU while we're using this product. We're checking labs once a week to make sure that the electrolytes are okay, that we're not doing too much, we're not causing overload on the kidneys, things like that. So this would need to be used probably in conjunction with the pediatrician in terms of maybe getting the labs checked every 2 weeks, that kind of a thing. And then how long after discharge should you be fortifying? So expert consensus, and this is people who meet to talk about these things in neonatology and who do research in this kind of things, say that fortification should be continued until 12 months or 1 year. The AAP, their official recommendation is 9 months. Kind of anecdotal practice, and this is what I personally do and a lot of neonatologists do, is to do the fortification until you start introducing other things into the diet rather than just breast milk or formula. Because at that point, when you start introducing cereal and when you start introducing the vegetables, those things are going to have iron. They're going to have, like the cereals are fortified with iron. They're going to have calcium. They're going to have all those things that you would be getting through fortification. Now you can get it through food instead. So this is where I personally practice at, is up to 6 months, but the official recommendations are 9 months from the AAP, which is the American Academy of Pediatrics, and 12 months from the neonatal boards.
Is this adjusted or?
Actual. But it also depends on how premature you are and when you start solids, because that all depends on head and neck control.
Sure.
Right. So once you start doing solids, whatever time that frame that is, when the pediatrician says the baby's ready, then I think fortify up until that point, and then you can come off of fortification and just do the introduction of food. Oh, I thought this was cute. So this is a former 24-weeker preemie from Cedars who was 1 pound 7 ounces. And now he's 19. This is probably from 2 years ago. He's 19 years old now. He threw out the first pitch at Dodger Stadium. So good nutrition, you can do anything.